It was the crumb I wanted, but not the color I wanted. And I still need to work on the amount of sourdough. Hello, howdy, and welcome back to another Sourdough Saturday. I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden Homesteader. So, hopefully this is the last try for this one. I did make another loaf earlier that I was experimenting with. I'll put up how it turned out. It's the one that I show at the beginning, I think. It came out dark because I was messing with the temperature of the oven. Yeah, don't mess with the temperature of the oven. But, tasted really good. So, that one was super close. I still didn't put enough starter in. So, I think for my kitchen, I just need to add a lot of starter. So, let's see what 150 grams, if I can get that much out of my jar, of starter will do. It might. Okay, so this is nice and active. I fed it this morning. There we go, 149. There we go, 152. Okay, we're going with that. So I can go ahead and feed this. There isn't much left, but that is enough to get it going for another batch. So I'll set that off to the side. Now I did start with a 1/4 stick of softened butter. This is unsalted butter. This is so that I can control the amount of salt, because I have no idea how much salt they put in salted butter. But if you do choose to use salted butter, just cut back on the amount of salt you're putting in. I don't know by how much, but you might want to do that. Okay, let's some salt in there. So that was a tablespoon of sugar, maybe a teaspoon and a half of salt, give or take. You know, I actually think it could use slightly more salt. It does seem like it's a slightly bland loaf, but you know, I'd rather not inhibit the rise. Okay, so there was a little bit of butter in here that didn't quite make it out. Okay, dairy. I got some milk powder here. I'm going to put in 1/3 of a cup. You could just substitute actual milk for some of the water, but I liked the texture it gave using the milk powder. Okay, I need 50 grams of vital wheat gluten. If you don't have this, but you do have bread flour, just use that. And I broke my bag. That's just lovely. Anyone else have problems with these Ziploc bags where the zipper just stays stuck to one side and then it doesn't seal anymore? Okay, well, I'm going to have to put that in a jar or something. Okay, if you have been following along with me on this journey, you will know that I have been sort of struggling to find something that has a nice soft crumb, isn't overly dark, and has a good flavor. So and rises in a reasonable amount of time. So that's kind of been a hard one for me, because I don't know if it's my kitchen is cold or what is going on, but you know, all these recipes that are like, oh, rise for 5 hours and it works. Well, it doesn't work for my kitchen. So I am putting in less flour, and I will be putting in less water. That is to account for the extra starter I am putting in, which is a lot of extra starter. It is enough that it is going to affect the ratios. So I decreased the flour and water a little bit, and we will go from there. Of course, my measuring cup is dirty. So I'm going to start with 250 grams. This is actually warm water from the tap. 250 grams. And if the texture isn't right, now we've made this a few times, so we know what the texture should be. If the texture is not right, I will just add a bit more water. If the texture is right, then I can stop adding water. Make a mess. Probably shouldn't do this on my scale. Oh, making a big mess. Now, in case you're wondering if it's worth getting a Danish dough hook, I'm kind of on the fence. I do like that it comes with a really nice sturdy handle, because that means I'm breaking less of my spatulas, or the rubber spatulas. But I don't know. I'm sort of ambivalent towards it. I do like it, but I don't know if I like it because I'm using it and I got it, or if it's something else. I actually like it, so it's just hard to tell. It's just one of those things where, is it a Is it a useful tool, or is it just a gadget that's not that useful? Okay, well. So the last time I did this, I actually mixed the water, like all the liquidy stuff together before adding the dry. And I'll tell you, it makes putting the sourdough in a little bit easier. And of course I did a different order this time. Okay, so this is slightly on the wet side. But I think it might come together and make a nice dough. So I think I might go with it and just do the 250 grams of water that I added. That will also account for some of the water that came from the starter. These things are hard to clean. I think that's why I'm ambivalent. And you shouldn't be putting stuff like that in the dishwasher. Dishwashers will ruin things. It'll ruin your knives, it'll ruin your wooden stuff, it'll ruin the handles on your pots if they're not metal. Ask me how I know. What is that? Like some random little brown thing in there. Weird. Okay. So this has come together. It's still pretty shaggy. Just needs to sit and rest for about an hour or two, kind of depends. And then it will get a really nice kneading, and I will then let it sit overnight. So, a couple of things I changed. Changed the ratios to work with the extra starter, so it's got extra starter. I am starting this a little earlier in the day. It's actually around 4 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock when I normally start this. So, hopefully, this now has a little extra time so that it can make it. We'll see. Nothing worse than getting up in the morning and thinking, oh yeah, I can shape my dough, and it hasn't risen yet. So I'm going to get this covered and get it going. So it's been about 16 hours, which I feel is a lot more reasonable than what I have had in the past, where I ended up having to put it in the dehydrator to get it to rise, and it actually rose at room temperature. So I feel like for my kitchen, 150 is really close. So that probably needs a little more optimization depending on if it's winter or summer, but let's get this going, see if it tastes as good as the other one. Getting this out on a lightly floured surface, just so it doesn't stick. This was a lightly oiled bowl. So at this point, it's just lather, rinse, repeat on making a loaf. Oops, I went a little too far. So I guess the big question will be, how long will it take for this to rise? It's kind of a wonky loaf. Alright, let's see. Get this under control. Alright, let's see what it takes to get this to rise. Okay, well, I'll see you back when this is ready. I do want it to come just over the top of the edge here. So I don't know if you can see, probably about a ½ inch to an inch, depending. And then we can get it baked off. Just wanted to show you how far it has risen and all the crap that I have on my countertop. You can see that there's actually a bubble forming here. So I did do the poke test, so I think I'm going to have to, I'll put the instructions on screen or link to it or whatever, but I think if you poke it and it springs back, it's still rising. If you poke it and the poke stays, then you're done. So I poked this probably about 10-15 minutes ago and it stayed, but I let it keep going because I was waiting for the oven to preheat, and you could see it started, this formed in the meantime, so slightly overproofed, but I think I'm okay. So I am going to actually, I'm going to put the tin foil on and do my little tin foil trick and see if that prevents the top from getting extra brown. That is not what caused the browning last loaf. So, but I just wanted to try this to see if it gives a softer loaf, like a softer exterior to the loaf. because I feel like I've got a soft interior to the loaf. So it's just trying to put all the pieces together to get the bread I want. So let's see if this works. Little bit of overproofing. There is something so comforting about the smell and taste of fresh homemade bread. I think I finally found the recipe that works for me. I might have to adjust the amount of starter based on house temperature, so in the winter a little more, in the summer maybe a little less. But this has a beautiful tender crumb, a lovely flavor, pretty easy technique, and it's just a tender bread. Unlike the loaf before this one, I did this at 375. I did cover it with the foil, and I feel like it worked out well. If you found this video useful, it'd be really nice if you would give it a like. Let me know that you liked it. Let me know if you've had any problems in the comments with making sourdough bread. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.